Hey there, Skeletor here. Welcome back to ZeitgeistOG. Today we're going to be talking about X-Men Dark Phoenix. Real fast, spoiler-free review. It is a disappointment. Like, a really big disappointment, okay? There are so many plot threads and elements that get picked up and dropped without any real connection to anything. Beyond that, for as long as this movie's runtime is, there's actually very little action until like the last half hour. Yes, we do see the X-Men in costume, but there really isn't a lot going on. But still, that's the spoiler-free review. Alright, let's get into this, okay? So, for anybody who is an X-Men fan, please understand the first 10 minutes of the film, savor it. Love it and savor it, because that's all you're getting. The first 10 minutes are the perfect send-off to the X-Men. If you remember the parade scene from Spider-Man 3 where New York just suddenly loves Spider-Man, he's not a menace anymore, he comes swinging through the crowd, high-fiving people. It's like that, but less cheesy. The X-Men bring up their plane from the basketball court and they start heading off into outer space to go save the space crew. And around the world, all these kids, people, everybody's running towards their TV screens and they're like, oh my god, it's the X-Men! We love the X-Men! Woo, yeah! That got me in the feels, man. That was the proper way to send off the X-Men. The rest of this movie is like a giant insult. Because this is it. This is all we're getting until, like, I think they announced 2022 or something like that. That's when we'll be getting X-Men. Logan was a great ending for the franchise and for Wolverine himself. This, Dark Phoenix, this was supposed to be the X-Men's send-off. Not Wolverine's, not maybe, well, I mean, it's supposed to be the franchise as a whole, but again, Logan cleaned that up so well compared to Dark Phoenix. So, they save the space crew, Jean gets bombarded with space radiation, whatever, it's Dark Phoenix. This is the second time you've seen this film. Nothing new. We get a weird scene where Charles is having an argument with Mystique, Raven. Really struck me as weird, just kinda, it doesn't really stop the movie per se, but it just really hit me as weird. There's a line where she's like, you know, while we're at it, you might as well rename the team the X-Women, because all the women do around here is save the men. Okay, sure. This is how you wanna end things? Whatever. Anyway, they're checking out Jean. Beast is doing his whole doctor routine. She's healthier than she's ever been. They're not worried about it. I mean, they're keeping an eye on her just because, but I'm just saying, you went into outer space, you got bombarded by all kinds of crap, and everybody's just shrugging it off like this is just, well, we'll keep an eye on you, but you're fine, you'll be fine. No, that is overnight observation at a minimum. So, this also struck me as really weird. They don't really bring it up as anything of a concern in the movie. It's just, you know, we have so many kids, we need to keep an eye on them. So, while they're out having a camping trip, Beast is watching all of them from inside the X-Mansion on like 10 different movie screens. Like, the way the movie camera is, that's what he's watching. It's really creepy because as Jean starts to like flare up her powers and remember stuff and so she starts, you know, powering up, the monitor Beast is watching her on lights up and goes through like a whole like zoom in on her spectrum, bunch of analysis readouts, like what? You can just like X-ray vision any of these students at any time. There's I have so many privacy issues with that, and also, why? When are you gonna need to do this? Because it doesn't even add anything other than, oh, well, I guess we ought to get out there and see what's going on. Like, there's no point for this, and I'm staying on this point for too long. Jean basically has a freak out when her powers flare up. That's what this whole thing is about. She remembers her father. She goes home to where she grew up. Freaks out, tries to kill her dad, the X-Men show up, and she kills Mystique, kicks the other X-Men's butts, and then flies off to go see Magneto, because why not? Jean goes over to Magneto's place. I thought it was gonna be Genosha or the Savage Lands or something when I was watching the trailers, but no, it's just a shantytown. The government gave Magneto and some of his X-Men a shantytown. Okay, so she goes there and she's you know, asking Magneto for help, and almost as soon as she shows up, the government shows up looking for Jean because she went rogue and flew off, and apparently the X-Men and the government are just like this now. As soon as the military shows up, Jean just starts fucking with them. And they think it's Magneto for a second, but he's like, it's not me. And Jean and Magneto essentially get into a tug of war with a helicopter. Like, they're standing pretty much side by side. She's knocked all the guns out of the military people's hands, and she's trying to take the helicopter and smash it down onto them. Magneto's trying to keep her from raising it up into the air. So they're both just pretty much standing next to each other like, no, I'm stronger, no, I'm stronger. It was the dumbest thing. There could have been a whole fight, there could have been so much action. And it boils down to a tug of war over a helicopter. A lot of things happen. I'm just gonna gloss over them. Whatever. So, they track Jean down to London. The X-Men show up to rescue Jean and try to talk her down. Magneto and his crew show up. It's never really explained who these guys are Magneto's with either, because, like, they're not the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants or just the Brotherhood of Mutants. They're not anybody of note either. There's like a dude who has dreads, and his dreads act as like whip tentacles. Point is, they're on opposite sides of a street, and they start fighting. And, oh my god, the casualties. I swear, like, this entire fight, nobody lands a hit on anybody else, but they are nailing the crap out of traffic. Like, at one point, Magneto's tired of dodging cars, so he's like, oh, I'm just gonna use them to, like, take the front end of one car and the back end of the other car and smash them together to crush the X-Men. So now, the fight becomes the ultimate game of Frogger. It's a mess. People on double-decker buses are getting, like, blasted by lightning because because Storm's just all over the place. It's a mess. It's a real mess. Magneto finally gets inside the building to go kill Jean, and he tries, but it's ultimately pointless. She crushes his helmet on his head, and then explodes it off his head and uses it as shrapnel, and sends all the shrapnel into his gut, which sends him flying out of the building and into the street. And right about then, Professor X heads into the building, and the military shows up. They just take down all the mutants. They just trank them. All of them. Like, it's great that you guys all have these amazing powers, but clearly you should be using guns. Like, if the military wasn't using tranks, dead mutants. Everywhere. I'm just saying. Like, you put up no fight, they came out of nowhere and just got you. And that's one of the things I'm talking about earlier, about how so many plot threads get picked up and dropped. Like, yeah, I understand the military had been searching for Jean. That's why they showed up at Magneto's place. That was a while ago. And that scene, they weren't even relevant other than pissing Jean off. They weren't relevant at all. And in this scene, I just said they tranked the mutants, blah blah blah. Honestly, that's not relevant. They're only there to move them from London to the final fight scene. The military plays no real part in this, but they keep showing up. Also, why would they snatch the entire X-Men team? Magneto and his crew left the reservation. Legally speaking, you can do what the f you want to them. The X-Men, on the other hand, just saved a space flight. Like, these guys are national heroes, and apparently you're partners with them. I understand you're trying to get Jean, but why are you screwing with the rest of the X-Men? Because the director couldn't figure out how to get from point A to point B. That's why. Some of this stuff is just really painfully obvious. Now, one thing I haven't brought up until now, because it is spread so thin throughout the movie, it's pointless to just stop and mention, oh, by the way, so during this entire time, Jean has had this alien chick with her. If you saw the trailer, she's the skinny, weird-looking white chick with the white hair. I thought she was going to be the embodiment of the Phoenix Force that only Jean could see. Kind of like, that way it's not a disembodied voice that she's talking to, but no. No, so aliens landed on Earth. Unnamed aliens. You only see them in their alien form, like, once for, like, a second and a half. Honestly, it's a fairly cool design from what I remember. They could have done more of that, but apparently that was gonna be too costly, I guess. So, this entire time, there's been, like, 4 of these guys. The chick who spends all her time with Jean was apparently, like, some rich dude's wife or something, and then she kills everybody at a dinner party and goes join joins the other aliens. Then there's the black guy who is like high-ranking military, and then there's two others who were honestly completely irrelevant to all of this. They were just bodies. This entire time there's been 4 of them. One of them has been with Jean the entire time. When we get to the train scene, the military show up, they trank the mutants, they put them on this big super prison train headed to somewhere. Honestly, I don't even remember where it's going. That's how pointless it was. The aliens show up wanting Jean. The government realizes they cannot stop these guys. Bullets aren't doing anything. Like, they unload everything they have into this alien point blank. Nothing. Military's like, oh, we're screwed. Might as well get the X-Men's help. Hit the button, release all the X-Men at once, and it's this kind of nice scene of like, oh, you want to get to one of us, you got to get through all of us kind of thing. That was nice, you know, teamwork. From that point on, there is suddenly like a gorillion aliens. They're just swarming the train left, right, and center, crawling all over it. And this is a big problem I had with Magneto's mutants. The way they're just whipping around with unspecified powers and everybody just kind of dresses the same. I couldn't tell who was an alien and who was one of Magneto's crew, and it was a real problem. Like, at this point, Cyclops can just go ahead and blast anybody he wants, and there's a really good chance he's going to hit a bad guy. It's a fun fight, but it's still a CGI nightmare, and this is where you see the alien in its true form. I think it was the black guy, the military dude. He gets blasted by lightning or something, and his body hits the ground and shapeshifts back into the alien form, and it looks fairly cool. Like, I thought it would be nice to see more of that, but you never do. That is the one time you see it. It's a mess. It's a real mess. Jean just wakes up at just the Deus Ex Machina, like the perfect time. When all the time on the clock has run out, she wakes up and just wipes out all of them. It's great because the train crashes and it's fun, but it reaches its climax and she just gets way too cocky for her own good. She is just like force blasting these things left and right, and they're just disintegrating Thanos style. And for a second I'm like, oh, so you've become God basically. Like, you're all powerful. And right as I'm thinking that, this one alien comes up from behind and stabs her through the back, and it just, like... And I'm like, okay, so you're all powerful, but you're not all seeing. Got it. She dies. Wipes out all the aliens, saves the day, blah, blah, blah. And it's a big sad moment. We lost her. And if you remember the original X3 with the original Dark Phoenix movie, the way it wraps up where the students have now become the teachers and they're running the school and all that crap, we basically see that everything is back to normal, but Jean is monologuing. She's given a fairly, I'm not gonna say cringy speech at the end there, but it definitely raises an eyebrow why you would word certain things like this. And then she just explicitly says she didn't die. I'm like, cause like this entire time I'm thinking like, are you saying this as a ghost? No, she explicitly says she evolved into a higher life form. And I'm thinking, 2001 Space Odyssey, please tell me you are a giant space baby. But no, apparently Phoenix Force just turned her into some invisible, omnipotent thing out there somewhere. And the X-Men are going to continue. Except they won't, because again, we're not getting another X-Men movie until they join the MCU in like 2021, 22 or something like that. Overall, this was an awful movie. Don't spend money on it. It was bad. This was not a good send-off to the franchise. This was not a good send-off to the characters. I love the X-Men. I love Marvel. Fuck this movie. This was bad. This hurt. As a fan, this hurt. So, don't go see Dark Phoenix. Don't spend money on it. For ZeitgeistOG, this has been One Angry Fan. Skeletor out.